The following presentation is a review of proposed changes to the statewide big game harvest regulations. Current regulations allow the department to refuse enrollment in the Managed Lands Deer Program for a variety of reasons. This proposal would amend the current rules to authorize the department to also be able to refuse enrollment for any tract of land enrolled in the MLD program in which a deer has been harvested but not presented to a mandatory check station for chronic wasting disease testing when required. Refusal for enrollment would not be automatic, and the proposed change would clarify and rule that the department would take into consideration factors that include whether the applicant advised hunters of mandatory check station requirements in effect at the time a deer was harvested on the tract of land owned or managed by the MLD applicant, whether the applicant encouraged, advised, or directed a hunter not to present deer at a mandatory check station, the number of deer harvested on the property that were not presented at the check station, and any aggravating or mitigating factors deemed relevant by the department. Staff for proposing would be the expansion of doe days in 41 counties in portions of the Blackland Prairie and Post Oak Savanna ecoregions. Staff would be considering two different doe day season structures, one for the counties in yellow that currently have a 4-day doe season, and different season structure for the counties in green where antlerless harvest is currently by Managed Lands Deer Program only. Within this region, regulatory deer surveys indicate a positive trend ranging from a 4.8% estimated average annual increase in the deer population in the yellow counties and a 3.1% estimated average annual increase in the green counties over the last 11 to 13 years. Big game harvest surveys also indicate that the estimated antlerless harvest comprises only 41% of the total harvest in the region, which may contribute to a skewed sex ratio averaging 3.8 does per buck in the yellow counties and 4.2 does per buck in the green counties. Participation in the Managed Lands Deer Program in this region is high, with over 4,800 management units enrolled in the Managed Lands Deer Program. Many of these properties are associated with wildlife management cooperatives and associations in which members receive antlerless MLD tags through the co-op or WMA's MLD enrollment. This is especially true for the counties in green where antlerless take is by MLD only. MLD harvest data indicates only 56% of the recommended antlerless deer harvest is achieved each year on average. This trend suggests MLD participation alone is not sufficient to address deer population growth in this region. Additionally, staff have been receiving requests from constituents over the last 5 years, especially in the green counties, asking the department to open doe days to allow hunters an opportunity to harvest does during the general season without having to participate in the Managed Lands Deer Program. By expanding doe days, staff would expect to be able to address requests from the public to have other options for antlerless harvest other than MLDP, as well as providing additional hunting opportunities, reducing impacts of deer browsing on native habitats, and relieving pressure on the buck harvest. In these 20 counties, staff are proposing to expand the current 4-day doe season to 16 days that would run the first 16 days of general season. In these 21 counties or portions of counties, staff are proposing to open a 4-day doe season that runs from Thanksgiving Day through the Sunday immediately following Thanksgiving Day, with a bag limit of 2 does during all seasons combined. As a reminder, antlerless deer harvest is by MLD only and has been that way since 1996 in these counties. Landowners and hunters in the area have been reluctant to support opening a day season in past years, but more recently, in the last 5 to 7 years, staff have received numerous requests to open a short doe season. Although staff doesn't believe there to be any resource issues that would arise from a 4-day doe season, staff are aware of concerns of possible overharvest voiced by some landowners and hunters in portions of these counties. To help ease concerns among hunters and landowners regarding potential for overharvest, staff would also propose an experimental mandatory harvest reporting of antlerless deer in these 21 counties. Only antlerless deer tagged with a hunting license tag would need to be reported within 24 hours of harvest. MLD antlerless harvest is already required to be reported for all MLD properties, so this proposed change will not affect MLD reporting requirements. Mandatory harvest reporting would be accomplished using the My Texas Hunt Harvest app available on mobile devices or the department's website that is currently being used for mandatory harvest reporting of eastern turkeys. The mandatory reporting would also allow staff to obtain accurate harvest information necessary to assess impacts of the harvest regulation on the deer population. This would also address some requests by landowners in these counties to closely monitor harvest. The next change staff are proposing concerns mule deer antler restrictions. In March of 2018, the Commission adopted an experimental mule deer antler restriction in 6 counties in the southeast panhandle. These counties are outlined by the blue box and are Briscoe, Hall, Childress, Floyd, Motley, and Cottle counties. 2018 was the first year of the experiment. At the same time the experimental mule deer antler restriction regulation was adopted, the Commission adopted a new mule deer season in Lynn County, which is the county in the blue circle. During the public hearings held in Tahoka prior to the March adoption of the Lynn County mule deer season, the attendees provided public comment requesting the department apply the antler restrictions to Lynn County as well. The department has also received other requests from the public to include Lynn County in the mule deer antler restriction experiment. Staff agree with these requests and would like to propose to include Lynn County into the mule deer antler restriction experiment. Staff believe the inclusion of Lynn County to the experimental antler restrictions would provide valuable data regarding the success of the antler restrictions to maintain an older buck age structure natural sex ratios, since this past November was the first ever mule deer season in Lynn County. As a background, the antler restriction regulation limits the harvest to any mule deer buck with an outside spread of the main beams of 20 inches or greater. Bucks with a spread of less than 20 inches are not legal for harvest. Additionally, the experimental antler restriction does not apply to MLD properties because TPWD biologists set property-specific bag limits for these MLD properties and conservative harvest recommendations. Staff will monitor the success of the experimental antler restriction using population surveys and voluntary check stations to collect more antler and ear measurement as well as buck age structure data. We are also sending opinion surveys to evaluate landowner and hunter support before and after the experiment. The next change staff are proposing is to open a javelina season in 6 counties in the North Zone. Currently, there are 43 counties in the North Zone, denoted by the counties in yellow, with a javelina season that runs 151 days from October 1 through the end of February. Another 50 counties in the South Zone, denoted by the counties in green, have a season open year-round. Historically, javelina were once found from Brownsville to the Red River as depicted on the map by the light orange shading. The counties with the dark orange stripes are counties where TPWD restocked javelinas primarily in the mid to late 1950s. Current javelina range is primarily restricted to the South Texas Plains, the western half of the Edwards Plateau, the Trans-Pecos, and portions of the Rolling Plains as designated by the red shading on the map. Over the last several years, both law enforcement and wildlife division staff have received a number of reports from hunters and landowners on the increasing number of javelina sightings in the counties outlined in red, and inquiries about opening a javelina season in these 6 counties. Staff believe there is no biological concern that would arise from opening a javelina season in these 6 counties where javelinas have expanded their range. Therefore, staff are proposing to add Borden, Dawson, Gaines, Hardeman, Scurry, and Terry counties to the current suite of counties in the North Zone, in which javelina season runs from October 1 through the last Sunday in February and has a bag limit of 2 javelina. Includes the presentation on proposed changes to the statewide big game harvest regulations.